I'm not a qualified electrician, but in this video I'm going to take you through the thought process and everything that's going on in a noob electrician's mind. So this is my first attempt at rewiring my house, or at least parts of it. And as an electrical engineer, you don't really learn this stuff throughout university. You learn this more through the trades and becoming a spark. As I didn't learn it throughout university and I didn't learn it in my degree, I wanted to try and learn it outside of that. Obviously as an electrical engineer I understand the basics, I understand kinda what's going on, but being able to practically do it and to practically put in circuits, that's where my gaps currently lie. So for that reason, I thought I'd go around the house, record it, and make sure you guys know all the mistakes and all the stupid things I've done, because I want to make it clear that these things are not necessarily easy and they're not necessarily obvious, even to somebody that's studied electrical engineering. All that to say, make sure you're talking to a qualified electrician before you go do any of this. So I've basically bought a bunch of electrical parts and I'm ready to go put them all up today. Here we have many light switches, 5 singles, 1 double, and then 4 individuals. And that's what we're going to start today. So we're going to start off by taking the singles, find the places that need new sockets. This one's not too bad, but it does have a wee loose nut, a wee loose screw there, and it's a wee bit painted over, so that one can be replaced. The main issues are ones like this one right here, which is actually hanging out the wall and really needs to be replaced, so that one's going to get done as well. This larger light came in here and it was initially for the holes in the wall just over there and over there, but instead I'm going to replace this with something a bit better. This switch right here is a double switch, but I'm not too sure why, so I might take it off, investigate a wee bit, and maybe just put in the single switch instead, because that'll look a wee bit nice. I've only got 2 left over, so I might do this one as well. This one's quite an interesting one. I'm not too sure if I should switch this one or not. You can see the flickering on it through the phone camera, but that's not normally how it is. It's just a kind of turn on, turn off light, but it gives you a wee indicator, so I might get this one. I know this is significantly different in some way, but I'm not too sure on what. And this one we may as well replace as well. It's a wee bit painted over, just older in general, but it's not the worst thing in the world. There's a screw in here as well, which should be nice to be replaced. So simply with this double socket, which might be replaced by this one, just to liven it up a wee bit and make it look a wee bit nicer. So let's go to the fuse board. We can turn off the upstairs lights, which I believe, if we're looking at it here, upstairs lights, downstairs lights, so we turn off the upstairs lights, and just for now we'll turn off the downstairs lights as well, and we'll see how that goes. Now when I flick the downstairs light, nothing happens, as opposed to before where this one was flickering, and it should be the same for the upstairs. Boom, and the lights off. Perfect. I'm hoping this one won't give into any troubles. So let's start on this one. Start by putting the screwdriver in and unscrewing it out. What you'll see at the start of this video is me using a tiny screwdriver for the sockets on the outside. In hindsight, I don't recommend you doing that, and I did upgrade later on to a larger screwdriver to take out the socket parts, whereas if you use a larger one for the socket parts and a smaller one for the inside parts, which require you to pull out the wires individually, then that really worked well for me. The only problem is you need to lug around a second screwdriver, which isn't the worst thing ever. One quick immediate thing you can see from this one is that it's got 2 lives, or essentially a live and a neutral, and no ground connected. This is definitely an older style of switch. This was a wee bit stupid from me, but I don't blame myself because it's not quite obvious when you put it this way. So essentially speaking, both these wires can be considered live wires. One wire essentially comes down to the top of the switch, and this wire is always live. It means the circuit can complete and continue to the second wire, which would then technically make that the neutral wire, because it's returning to the start of the circuit. And supposedly the ground is grounded, it's just grounded into the metal casing. It looks to be screwed in just down there, if you can see it. Just into that wee metal casing there, it's supposed to be grounded in there. I think I'll leave it like that for now, because I'm not qualified to take it further, but I will replace the old light switch with the new switch and see how it works out. So the 2 red wires actually have 1 red wire and 1 slightly brown wire. The slightly brown wire is a switched wire, which essentially means this is the one that dedicates whether the feed will return or not. And just a quick one again, Analytical Jordan coming in here. So the reason why the ground was tucked away in the back corner is because that is a metal casing, which essentially means the metal in the casing can conduct electricity and needs to be grounded, whereas the light switch itself is plastic mainly. And plastic is an insulator which stops the connection, and that's the reason why that's not grounded, but the metal casing needs to be grounded. Here you can see you've got 2 things. You have take away the screwdriver. You have L1 for this section right here, if it focuses. L1 there, and your second output there. So your first live goes in there, your second one there, and we just need to remember that when we're putting this one on with L1 going to COM.
So let's stop that embarrassing commentary real quick. It doesn't actually matter what way you put them in, although the L1 wire does make sense to go into the L1 socket, into the new switch. The COM is essentially a return feed, so that one can be used for the switch socket because that's not always live. So if it's returning, it's coming at the COM side, whereas originally it's always going into L1, which makes sense, and I believe that was the way it was lined up anyway, so that's the way it ended up going in. I'll be honest, learning all this in the future does seem a bit precarious, but at the same time, I knew there was an MCCB, I knew there was an RCD, I knew the power was off, so these 3 safety protections I knew would save me if anything went wrong. Thankfully nothing didn't, but even at that, not much could go wrong, and I was mostly aware that not much could go wrong. So that's kind of why it was an easy enough task for me to go in without knowing exactly what was going on, but now that I'm looking back over it, I can learn exactly what's going on and rebate it to you guys.
I go turn everything on, hope it doesn't blow up. It's not coming out. It shouldn't be on right now because there's no fuse on, but let's go see. So we're back at the fuse box. Now let's turn on the upstairs light, see if it stays on. It's a good sign so far. Upstairs lights generally have a smaller ampage, so it takes longer for it to click if it were to click, but we'll take it as a win for it. To turn on the light, and you'll never guess what. It is upside down. When I turn the light switch off, it goes on, and it goes off. All I need to do is pull this out, flip it round, and make sure the wires still stay connected. After I turn off the fuse. Back over to the fuse box. So now that the fuse box is off, I'm just going to take this off, turn it around, put it back on again. This one will do better for taking out the nuts, whereas the other one will do better for actually going inside the socket itself. You look here, everything is still tight on.
So again, hindsight Jordan here, this is theoretically wired wrong, however it doesn't really matter. So perfectionists should tell you that you should always put the live wire essentially going to the top of the feed and have the switch wire at the bottom. But this case, it actually seems like the switch wire is at the top and the live wire is at the bottom, which is my bad because I tried to do it the other way when the light switch was upside down. However, when you flipped it around, it made it
fantastic.
So one way was upside down and one way wasn't. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much. I could go back and switch it, and I might do that when I go around to do
this one, simply because it's right here and easy enough. So I've already turned the fuse box off, so this shouldn't be on. This is not on, I can confirm. And we will take this off, which is a regular screw for some strange reason, and another screw. There we go. Same again, 2 wires. Let's quickly test it.
Now what I'm using here is a non-contact clamp meter, and essentially what this does is it allows you to test the voltage without actually having to physically touch or press wires. What I'm essentially looking for is 0 readings across the board. That essentially means the fuse is off and there's no power going to it. And then again, first time, so I triple checked by using the probes. So I should explain as well, we've not long moved into the property and some of the electrics are questionable. Like it's not too bad, but it's not too good either. We moved from a property that recently had a rewire done. I know because my cousin is a very renowned spark, and I thankfully was able to run around town and watch what he was doing and basically follow him along as I was going. So that kind of gave me the confidence to do this and to know that the wiring that was currently in the house was definitely DIY by the old owners, and trying to go around and see how safe everything is and actually try and fix it off. But it does seem safe in fairness, except for the few hanging out sockets and broken sockets. But overall I had the confidence to start this because of the old house and the old rewire.
Looks fairly level to begin with. Yeah, it's fine, isn't it? That's fine enough for me. Boom. Now we're going to go turn on the fuse box, test this light out and see if it works. Boop. And as you can see, I've done it again. This light switch is like this, and it's not supposed to be. I seem to have quite a bad habit of just putting it on upside down regardless. I turned off the fuse now, so the light's not on, which is good. And let's use the bigger one. So we use the bigger one to take off the screws, and we flip it round.
Now I want you to look at this picture for a moment. Can you tell which way the light switch is up and which way the light switch is down? This is something I found later on and could have been very handy for the first two light switches. It seems I may be blind because it's right there and it's been there all along. So let's go back to unscrewing and turning around. By the way, I didn't need to screw it all the way in, but I did for quote unquote safety.
And that's it fixed now. As you can see, light on, light off. So that's it fixed.
This is another light switch that I couldn't really get a good angle on, so unfortunately it will just have to be me soon. But as you can see, going through, pulling it out, testing it to make sure it's off, and then switching out the socket.
I'm just noticing, so this has a top signal on it. So if you look just here, don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it basically says top right here. Anyways, that was a fun way to get it the right way around every time. Put a wee top on it. Good to know.
I don't know if you could tell in my voice there, but I felt like a total idiot after that. I'm glad I recorded this commentary because listening back to this bullshit commentary is crazy to me. I am trying to figure out things that don't need an answer. Now that I realise what the answer is, I mean, just listen to this. Don't take this as true, but listen to this.
That's good. You can actually pull off the red colouring on that. But realistically, I'm not sure why they put red colouring on it when it's a black neutral wire anyway, unless because of the no ground system they wanted to make it obvious. I suppose that's the reason for it.
And we now know the sleeving represented the switch wire. So one of them was the live wire and the other one was the switch wire, and I was just talking out my arse. And what I'm also now realising is because I figured out the top and bottom system of this light switch, now this one would always be right, because regardless of what way it gets plugged in, it's going to work.
Amazingly, we got that one working first time. Fantastic. Boop. Now this is the last one we've got left, and admittedly the one I'm most concerned about, simply because there's two. There's one in the bathroom, and there's one here as well. Again, I've just turned the fuse box off, so just to reiterate, we're gonna bang bang, nothing turns on. Fantastic. Then we're gonna go.
Now this light switch was on really tight. Even after taking out the screws, the whole thing was just stuck in the wall. So I ended up improvising it and finding a new way to get it off, but it worked, so no complaints.
There we go. One is a lot more complicated. It's not really coming out the wall as well, which is a bit of a pain. But there's two grounds down there. There's live, neutral, neutral. So all we need to do is keep these pairs together and make sure the grounds go back in the same spot.
Oh, if only it was that simple. So essentially, there's 3 sets of wires feeding into this light switch for a 2-way switch. Because downstairs we have another light. This light can turn on the light upstairs, the one we're currently working on. So we've got the one downstairs that can turn on upstairs, we've got this one that can turn upstairs, and the bathroom. So the bathroom one's simple, that should be in its own circuit, but the upstairs light needs to work on the 2-way gang system with the bottom light that is powering the upstairs light. Fair to say I didn't notice that in the moment. So let me clarify, there are no grounds connected to the light switch itself. The grounds are connected to the metal casing in the back. What I was referring to was the live and the neutral, or the live switch. So it's coming into the socket were multiple pairs of lives and live switches. These pairs have been fed together from the previous electrician, linking the bottom light to the hall light. The intention is that if either light is switched on, then the light will be active and live. However, I didn't get that in the moment. And then this is followed by a slight realisation.
Shit, that's a fucking 2-way.
And to cut a long story short, I am certain I figured it out. I just need to put 1 and 1, 2 and 2, and then the bathroom light in its own circuit, and we're all good.
I figured it out. I can't believe I figured it out. Can't believe I did that. So, I'll grab this in. This one now has 2 neutrals, number 1 and number 2. And this is feeding back to the downstairs switch as well, whereas this one's just the one switch for the bathroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the fuse box and hope it doesn't trip. Pray to God it doesn't trip. We're going to turn it on. 3, 2, 1. And now since this is out, we're going to be a wee bit more careful. Immediately the bathroom lights are off. is not good. So we've got this light on. We don't have the bath. We do have the bathroom light on. What? That light turns on. That's a two-way. That's fine. The bathroom light turns on the bathroom switch. And this one turns off this light. But it's upside down. But I think that's because of downstairs. So, if I go downstairs to this light switch right here, I turn this off, and then I go turn it on, and boom, this one's upside down. But you know what? I think that's fine.
Part of the reason why it was a partial success is because it's taken me a long time to get to this point at this time of the day, and I've got stuff to do. So I just wanted to get it back on. One of the light switch works for upstairs, which is fine enough for now, but I will go back and fix it when I get the time again.
This could be why this was so solid in the wall beforehand, because they couldn't get the screws. So a while back, I was gifted some extra long poles, basically, and what these extra long screws allowed you to do was to go further back into a back box, but in classic fashion, I've lost them, and it's absolutely fuming. So instead of using the extra long ones, I'm going to use these ones that the old owners used. Don't know if you can see that there, but these are just slightly longer than what the original ones were. So for reference, this is an original one, and this is the other one side by side. So you can see it slightly peaks over the top there. Try to get it nice and frame. There you go. So that's a wee bit longer. Hopefully these old ones will work just as well, because the other ones that I have don't. The problem was, a couple of weeks ago I asked my dad for some of his, because he's got plenty of extra long socket screws kicking about. I asked him for a few of them, he gave me them, and now they're gone. Where they're gone? The house of the Bermuda Triangle, it seems. I have no clue.
I would like to point out that now they have been found. They were in a joggies pocket that had went through the wash, so they're nice and clean. But at least next time when I go down to do it all again, I've got those again. So thankfully, I found them.
Hopefully, after all that, everything's still working, nothing came out. Well, the isolator's not on. One sec, I'll go turn on the fuse. Okay, the fuse is on. Let's see. Oh, this one turns on the whole light, fantastic. This one turns on the bathroom lights. Ideally, this switch should be the right way up, but for now it's fine. I know, I'm no perfect guy. And the light should be isolated, so it should be good just to start working on this one. But I want to see what's behind this one first. Because first off, you've got this big massive switch, and then I've got a funny feeling that behind this is going to be two sets of lights. So let's go around and reveal. As we've learned, it's important to keep these sockets together, but this bit's coming a hard time under this paper. There we go. Oh, it's only two wires. That's surprising. I'm also going to rip out some of this. So before I take it all out, let's make sure there's nothing in this back box. Let's just try carefully rip some of this off, because this doesn't need to be in the back box. It's all kind of excess wallpaper and stuff that the old people thankfully left behind. I'll cover that up afterwards. Most important part. And the excess wallpaper up here as well. Okay, so they've got a connector going off that way. That seems to be loose, which isn't safe. What I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily wire up this new one. It's not going to power anything because there's no lights in there. So it's not actually going to power anything, but I'm going to temporarily just put it in just so it's covering it. Thinking about it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this live and neutral wire will be needed so the circuit can flow through it the other circuits. However, the rest of it I can tape up with some black tape. So we've got one live neutral here. I've taped up this live and this neutral. I left the copper earth exposed, hopefully for extra safety, but I figured that one wouldn't need would wouldn't need wrapping up anyway. And these two are going to go into the light switch, and then the light switch will go over the top. Hopefully it fits this back box. It seems awful, but maybe that's just because it's a mess with all this wallpaper still kicking about on it. So we're going to rip off some of this wallpaper and hopefully put that back in, and it should fit on nicely, or at least as nicely as.
And Future Jordan's back. Just to explain this a bit more, so there's two lights in the living room, which means two sets of wires. Each of those sets of wire has live, neutral, ground. The ground again is connected to the back box because it's metal, and then the live and neutral or live switch wires, those two are the important ones. We've got one that I've wired up to the living room, considered it the main light switch for this one, but in future this light switch will probably be replaced by two light switches, or both the lives and both the neutrals can go into the same terminal so long as they are together, so long as they don't short between each other.
After putting this back on, you can kind of see immediately one of these needs the longer screw, because it's no way going to reach that. I'm going to put the longer screw in the right and the short screw in the left. See how that. This one I definitely struggled with a wee bit. This screw is pretty much for decoration, but this one's nice and sturdy. This one's a longer one, so it's reached all the way back, and that was the deeper side of it. So I think that's actually brought out a nice wee kind of balance to it. This is quite sturdy, so you can't really move it, but this screw will be replaced as soon as those long screws show up that are somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle house. As soon as they show up, I'll then put a long screw in there and it'll be sorted. But I think you can agree that looks a lot better than from what it did before with that big black button. But anyway, I digress. That might even be made into a two-way switch if we get the other light going again, because we basically have two spots in the roof, one there and one there, and that's where the light's supposed to connect to. But essentially right now it only turns on one of the lights, not sure what side, and the other light is just kind of isolated away. I've turned over some tape to make sure it's safe, essentially. And just to make sure, I can turn on the lights. Anything flicks, anything goes crazy, let's go turn it on. Boop. Boop. Turn it on. Don't hear anything wrong, so we're good. Purposes of the kitchen, we're going to turn this one off and then go check out the kitchen light.
Then I did also go to do the kitchen light as well, but turns out this is actually a two-way light. I'm just not too sure what the second circuit's for. So once I find out what the second circuit's for, I can then do a bit more with it. But for now I just took it off and realigned it and made it look nicer, really.
Right, so that's it just in, but I've put it in really squinty so I could then put it in. I initially put the total socket in really squinty, which meant I could get the screw in, and once I got the screw in I can then even up the socket, so not too bad. So if anything in there, all I've done is make it less squinty, but at least that's something.
And that's me done all the light switches, although the initial plan was to go straight into the sockets, but I may have to go back and switch up the light switches first. I don't know, we'll see how I'm feeling. I may go into the sockets first, I may go back to fix those light switches while it's still fresh in my head, but I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, peace.